John Sterling was a force of nature in the wrestling ring. They called him the Crusher, and for good reason. He was a mountain of muscle, all raw power and intimidating stares. When he stepped into the arena, the crowd roared, and his opponents usually ended up flat on their backs. He was the WWE champion, a king in a world of showmanship and brute strength. To anyone watching, John Sterling seemed invincible, fearless, a man who could conquer anything. His public persona was carved from granite, unyielding and unbreakable. But away from the flashing lights and screaming fans, John Sterling had a private world, one that was anything but invincible. This world revolved around his wife, Sarah, and their shared dream. They had pictured a family for years, a little one to fill their quiet home with laughter. When Sarah became pregnant, their joy was boundless. It felt like another victory, even more precious than any championship belt. Then came Lily. Her birth was a whirlwind of emotion, a tiny perfect bundle that instantly stole their hearts. They held her, whispered promises, and imagined all the wonderful things she would do. But as the weeks turned into months, a quiet worry began to grow. Lily didn't startle at loud noises. She didn't turn her head when they spoke. The doctors eventually confirmed their fears, delivering a diagnosis that shattered John's image of invincibility. Lily was profoundly deaf from birth. Her world was one of complete silence. This news hit John harder than any steel chair to the head. His public image, that tough, fearless warrior, crumbled in the face of his daughter's vulnerability. He was a champion, a problem solver in the ring. But this was a problem he couldn't punch, couldn't grapple with. He felt a deep, gnawing helplessness. How could he connect with a child he couldn't speak to in the way he understood? How could he protect her from a world that seemed so overwhelming without sound? The weight of his inability to fix this, to make it better for his little girl, was crushing. It was a silent burden that he carried everywhere. Sarah, however, moved with a different kind of strength. While John wrestled with his internal conflict, Sarah became a whirlwind of proactive energy. She dove headfirst into learning American Sign Language, her fingers quickly mastering the fluid movements. She spent hours researching therapies, contacting specialists, and advocating for Lily's needs with fierce determination. Sarah was the bridge, constantly trying to close the emotional gap that seemed to widen between John and Lily. She'd sign to Lily, then translate for John, always trying to bring them closer, to help him understand Lily's silent world. Lily, in her early years, was a child of innocent joy. Her world was silent, yes, but it was also vibrant with visual cues and tactile sensations. She explored everything with her eyes and hands, finding delight in the simplest things. She learned to communicate with her own gestures before ASL became her primary language, pointing and expressing herself with an intensity that made up for the lack of sound. Sometimes John would watch her, a small smile on her face as she played, and a quiet sadness would settle over him. Her innocence was beautiful, but it also served as a constant reminder of the barrier he felt. The family dynamic was a complex weave of love and unspoken tension. They loved Lily fiercely, but John often felt isolated from her unique experience. He saw her deafness not just as a condition, but as a wall between them, one he couldn't climb over. He wanted to understand, to connect, but he just didn't know how. It was like they spoke different languages, and he felt clumsy and inadequate in hers. They explored every medical avenue. Cochlear implants were discussed, along with other interventions. They spent countless hours with doctors, learning about the procedures, the risks, and the potential outcomes. After much deliberation, after weighing all the information and observing Lily's specific responses, they made a difficult decision. For Lily's profound condition, the medical options available at the time offered limited success, and they decided against them. They didn't want to put Lily through invasive procedures if the benefits were minimal. This decision, while made with love, only deepened John's quiet despair. He felt like he was failing his daughter, that he was running out of options. His frustration grew, a silent roar inside him. He started searching for anything, however unconventional, that might help Lily experience sound, even if it wasn't through her ears. He was desperate for a breakthrough, a way to connect with her in a world he simply couldn't grasp. He felt like he was adrift, a powerful man utterly powerless against the silence. With medical avenues exhausted and John's hope dwindling, a new chapter began for Lily. She started attending a specialized academy for children with hearing impairments, nestled in a bustling U.S. city. The academy was a vibrant place, a hive of activity where communication flowed through hands and eyes. Its environment was incredibly supportive, focusing heavily on visual and tactile learning, adapting every lesson to suit its students' unique needs. For Lily, it was a world where she wasn't an anomaly, but just another bright, curious child. John, the crusher, often handled the drop-offs and pickups. These daily routines were a constant, quiet reminder of his inability to fully share Lily's world. He'd stand in the bustling hallway, watching other parents sign fluidly with their children, their faces alight with understanding. He saw the easy connections they made, the shared jokes, the comforting gestures. He tried his best, practicing his ASL, but he always felt a step behind, a wall still between him and Lily's full understanding. Each interaction he witnessed, each laugh shared between a parent and child through sign, underscored his own struggle. He longed for that effortless connection, that complete understanding with his daughter. It was during these drop-offs and pickups that John would sometimes see Arthur. Arthur was the academy's long-serving janitor, a man who seemed almost invisible. He was quiet, unassuming, always meticulously cleaning. He moved through the halls with a broom and dustpan, a silent fixture in the background, easily overlooked by most of the busy parents and staff. His presence was so ordinary, so routine, that John barely registered him. He was just part of the furniture, another background element in John's world of worry and frustration. But Lily, with her heightened visual awareness, saw Arthur differently. Her world was built on observation, on noticing the small details that others missed. She often watched Arthur from afar, her keen eyes tracking his movements. She noticed the particular way he moved, a subtle rhythm in his sweeping, a quiet humming that sometimes accompanied his work, a vibration more than a sound that she seemed to pick up on. To others, it was just a janitor doing his job, but to Lily, there was something about Arthur that drew her attention. She saw details in his work, in his posture, in the way he interacted with the environment that no one else seemed to notice. Subtle interactions would sometimes occur. Arthur, in his quiet way, would occasionally offer Lily a small, warm smile as he passed, or a gentle nod. These brief moments, though fleeting, stood out to Lily in her silent world. They were small points of light in her day, a silent acknowledgement from a man who seemed to understand more than he let on. She treasured these wordless exchanges, finding a strange comfort in them. John, however, remained largely indifferent to Arthur. He was too consumed by his daughter's struggles, too focused on the looming shadow of her deafness, to really see the janitor. Arthur was just part of the background, a blur in John's periphery. He saw a man cleaning, nothing more. John's mind was constantly racing, searching for solutions, for ways to break through to Lily. He was too deep in his own worries to notice anything extraordinary about the quiet janitor. He dismissed Arthur as merely a worker, a functional part of the academy, not a person who could possibly hold any significance in their lives. A recurring anomaly started to surface. Sometimes Lily would point to Arthur, then make a unique, nonverbal gesture, a small, quick movement with her hand as if trying to communicate something specific about him to her father. It wasn't a sign he recognized, just a gesture. John, deep in his own thoughts, would usually dismiss it as a child's imagination, a playful distraction. He'd gently redirect her attention, not realizing the importance Lily placed on these observations. He thought she was just being a curious kid, pointing at interesting things. He couldn't grasp the depth of her visual connection to the world around her, or how much she processed without sound. The academy, for all its supportive atmosphere, was also a constant reminder of the challenges Lily faced. For John, walking through its halls, seeing all the adaptations, the visual aids, the sign language everywhere, brought a sense of inadequacy. He felt like he was entering a world to which he didn't fully belong, a world where his usual strengths felt useless. He was the Crusher, a man who solved problems with brute force and determination. But here, in this silent visual world, he felt clumsy and ineffective. He yearned to connect, but the way seemed blocked. Unbeknownst to John, Arthur subtly observed Lily more closely than anyone realized. He wasn't just sweeping floors, he was watching. He noticed her unique responses to certain vibrations, the way she would sometimes pause, her head tilted slightly, as if feeling something in the air or the floor. He saw her heightened awareness, her sensitivity to movement, and subtle shifts in her environment. Arthur, the unassuming janitor, saw something in Lily that even her own father, consumed by worry, had yet to fully grasp. He saw her as a potential connection to a deeper understanding of sensory perception, a living confirmation of his own obscure lifelong studies. He continued his work, always in the background, but his eyes were always open, especially when Lily was near. He saw the small, almost imperceptible reactions she had to the world around her, reactions that others failed to register. He noticed how she would press her hand against the wall or floor when a large truck rumbled by outside, how her eyes would track the vibration of the school bell, even though she couldn't hear its sound. Arthur was a quiet observer, collecting data in his mind, slowly piecing together a picture of Lily's unique sensory world. He knew there was more to her experience than just silence, and he was beginning to understand how much more. A sudden, fierce storm hit the city, turning the late afternoon sky a bruised purple. John was stuck in traffic, the rain a drumming wall against his windshield, delaying his usual pickup time for Lily. He fumed, frustrated by the unexpected delay, knowing Lily would be waiting in the main hall of the academy, probably restless and wondering where he was. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Lily was indeed waiting, her small hands tracing patterns on the polished floor. The usual after-school bustle had died down, replaced by the rhythmic patter of rain against the large windows. Arthur, the janitor, was in the hall, but his movements were different today. There was a subtle shift in his usual methodical cleaning. He wasn't just pushing a broom. He was moving with a strange, almost deliberate rhythm. He began to tap his broom handle against the floor, not randomly, but in a specific, repeating pattern. It was soft at first, then a little firmer. A series of short, distinct thumps, followed by a longer, dragging sound. Lily, startled by the unusual vibrations traveling through the floor, looked up. Her eyes, always so quick to notice movement, fixed on Arthur. Her small body stiffened slightly. Then a faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through her. It wasn't fear, but something akin to a jolt of recognition. She instinctively placed her hand flat on the floor, pressing her palm against the cool tile, feeling the distinct patterns Arthur was creating. The vibrations pulsed against her skin, a new kind of message. Arthur, from the corner of his eye, noticed Lily's reaction. He didn't stop, but he subtly changed the rhythm, making it a little more complex, a little more varied. He added a lighter, quicker tap, then a deeper, slower one. Lily's face, usually serene or mildly curious, underwent a profound change. Her eyes widened, and a slow, radiant smile spread across her lips. It was an expression John had never seen before. A mixture of wonder, nascent understanding, and pure, unadulterated delight. It was as if she was experiencing something akin to sound. Not through her ears, but through the very core of her being. A language spoken by the floor beneath her hand. Just as this extraordinary interaction unfolded, John finally burst through the academy doors, shaking rain from his coat. He saw Lily on the floor, her face alight, and Arthur, broom in hand, still creating those strange, rhythmic taps. John froze, the image burning into his mind. He saw Lily's unusual reaction, a joy he rarely witnessed, and Arthur's strange actions, which seemed to be the cause of it. A flicker of curiosity ignited within him, quickly followed by a prickle of suspicion. What was going on? Why was this janitor doing something so odd? And why was Lily responding like that? Arthur, seeing John, immediately stopped his tapping. The hall returned to its usual quiet, save for the rain. He straightened up, his face placid, and offered a simple, "Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling," his voice calm and even. He then quietly resumed his regular cleaning, pushing his broom with a mundane, unaccented rhythm, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. John, still processing what he had just witnessed, knelt beside Lily. He tried to question her, signing, "What happened? What was that?" But Lily's sign language was still rudimentary. She made a gesture that combined the sign for touch with a quick, excited motion of her hand. As if vibrating, she pointed at Arthur, then back to the floor, her eyes still sparkling with that new, almost magical understanding. She couldn't explain the complex sensation, the intricate dance of vibrations that had just spoken to her. John was left with a puzzling image, a feeling that something significant, something truly profound had just occurred. Yet he couldn't grasp its meaning. It felt like a secret language, and he was completely locked out. When John recounted the incident to Sarah that evening, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and bewilderment. She listened patiently. She was intrigued, but also cautious. "It sounds like a coincidence, John," she said, her tone gentle. "Or maybe Lily's imagination, fueled by the excitement of the storm. We can't get our hopes up for every little thing, you know." Her practicality was a steadying force, but it also cooled the spark of wonder John had felt. She reminded him of all the false leads, the fleeting hopes they had chased over the years. Despite Sarah's skepticism, the image of Lily's radiant face and the unique vibrations she had experienced stayed with John. He couldn't shake it. It wasn't just a coincidence. He felt it in his gut. There was something more to Arthur, the unassuming janitor, than met the eye. began to view the quiet man with new eyes, no longer just a background fixture, but a person with a hidden depth. The suspicion lingered, but it was now mixed with a growing sense of intrigue. Over the next few days, John started to subtly observe Arthur. He would linger a little longer during drop-off and pickup, pretending to check his phone or tie his shoe, all while discreetly watching the janitor. He tried to catch him repeating the unusual behavior, hoping to understand what he had seen. But Arthur remained just a janitor, meticulously cleaning, moving through the academy halls with his usual quiet efficiency. He never tapped the broom in that special rhythm again when John was around. He was just Arthur, cleaning floors, a puzzle John couldn't solve, yet couldn't forget. The memory of Lily's illuminated face was a beacon, pulling him towards an understanding he knew was just out of reach. He felt a growing impatience, a need to unravel the mystery, to understand what secret Arthur held that could make his daughter smile with such profound joy. John couldn't shake the feeling that Arthur held a key to something extraordinary. The image of Lily's face, lit up by the vibrations, had etched itself into his mind. It was more than curiosity now. It was a deep, nagging suspicion that this quiet janitor possessed knowledge that could change everything for his daughter. He decided he needed to act, to find out for himself what Arthur was truly doing. Watching him subtly during school hours wasn't working. Arthur was too careful, too unassuming. John needed to see him when he thought no one was looking, when his guard was down. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, a plan began to form. He called Sarah, telling her he had forgotten some important paperwork at the gym and needed to go back to retrieve it. It was a flimsy excuse, but she was tired and didn't press. He drove back to the academy, his heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The parking lot was empty, the building dark except for a few security lights. He let himself in with the spare key he had for emergencies, the one for when Lily forgot something. The silence inside was thick, different from the daytime bustle. He moved through the deserted halls, his footsteps echoing, searching for Arthur. He checked the main offices, the classrooms, even the cafeteria. Nothing. Just the faint smell of cleaning products. He was about to give up, to dismiss his hunch as a desperate fantasy, when he noticed a faint sliver of light coming from under a door in a rarely used wing of the building. This wing was usually locked, reserved for storage and old equipment. He pushed the door open slowly, carefully, so it wouldn't creak. What he saw inside stopped him cold. It wasn't a janitor's closet. It was a small, hidden room, crammed full of strange instruments and objects. There were metal plates of different sizes, some with intricate patterns etched into them, others smooth and polished. Wires snaked across a workbench, connecting to what looked like small speakers, but without the cones. There were diagrams on the walls, covered in complex equations and sketches of human hands, ears, and brains. It looked less like a storage room, and more like a mad scientist's lab. Arthur was there, hunched over a work surface, holding a small mallet. He wasn't cleaning. He was meticulously working on one of the metal plates, tapping it gently with the mallet, then listening, not with his ears, but by placing his fingers on the surface, his eyes closed in concentration. Arthur, unaware of John's presence, then placed a specially designed resonant plate onto a low wooden stand. He took a small, circular device, something like a tuning fork, but much more complex, and tapped it against the plate. The entire room, and the floor itself, began to vibrate. It wasn't a loud sound, not something you heard with your ears in the traditional sense, but something you felt. John felt it through the soles of his shoes, up his legs, a complex patterned rhythm that resonated deep within his chest. It was the sound that Lily must have felt, but far more intricate, more deliberate. He could feel distinct pulses, subtle shifts in intensity, a language of touch that was utterly alien yet profoundly impactful. He realized Arthur wasn't just a janitor. He was a master of vibrational physics and sensory translation, a silent wizard working in a hidden workshop. John, unable to contain his astonishment, stepped out of the shadows. The sudden movement startled Arthur, who dropped his mallet with a clatter. He spun around, his eyes wide, a rare flicker of emotion crossing his usually placid face. "Mr. Sterling," he said, his voice quiet, almost a whisper. "What are you doing here?" John held up his hands, a gesture of peace. "I saw you," he said, his voice raspy. "I saw what you did with Lily, and I just felt this." He gestured vaguely at the vibrating room. "What is this place? What are you doing?" Arthur hesitated, his gaze sweeping over his workshop, a look of resignation settling on his face. He sighed, then gestured to a worn stool. "Please, Mr. Sterling, sit." He then began to speak, his voice low but clear, explaining his life's work. He had dedicated decades to developing methods to translate audible sound into complex, meaningful, tactile vibrations for the deaf. He explained how the human brain, given the right input, could interpret these patterns as a form of hearing, creating new neural pathways. It wasn't just about feeling a thump. It was about feeling the nuances of a melody, the distinct signature of a human voice, the emotional landscape of music. Arthur then shared his personal motivation. He had a younger sister, Evelyn, who was born profoundly deaf, just like Lily. He remembered her frustration, her isolation, her yearning to connect with the world of sound that remained forever closed to her. He had spent years trying to find a way to bridge that gap, experimenting with everything from crude vibrating devices to complex resonant chambers. He had failed to help Evelyn before she passed away too young, but her memory fueled his lifelong dedication to this obscure field. He emphasized the ethical responsibility involved, the need to manage expectations and not give false hope. He had seen too many promises made to deaf families that led only to disappointment. John, overwhelmed with emotion, felt tears sting his eyes. He rose from the stool and moved towards Arthur, his hands clasped together in a silent plea. "Please, Arthur," he choked out, his voice thick. "You have to help Lily. She's so sensitive to vibrations, I've seen it. She feels things others don't. You saw what happened the other day. She reacted to your tapping in a way I've never seen before." He explained Lily's specific condition, her heightened tactile senses, her innate curiosity. "She needs this. I know she does." Arthur looked at John, his gaze steady, searching. He saw the desperation in the champion's eyes, the raw, unfiltered love for his daughter. He saw a man stripped of his public persona, vulnerable and pleading. But he also saw the immense challenge. "It's incredibly complex, Mr. Sterling," Arthur said, his voice soft. "It would require immense time, dedication, and patience. And I've never attempted this with a child, especially not to this extent. The brain is still developing. There's no guarantee. There's always the potential for disappointment." He expressed concerns about the complexity, the time commitment, and the emotional toll it could take on everyone involved. He had seen the heartbreak of dashed hopes, but as he looked at John, he saw a glimmer of his own past, his own desperate hope for Evelyn. The silence in the room stretched, heavy with unspoken possibilities. The silence in the room stretched, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Arthur looked at John, a deep sadness in his eyes that spoke of old wounds, but also a flicker of something else, perhaps a rekindled hope. John stood there, a giant of a man, reduced to a pleading father. He waited, barely breathing, for Arthur's answer. Finally, Arthur nodded slowly. "All right, Mr. Sterling," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'll help Lily, but on my terms. This isn't a quick fix and it's not a game. It will demand everything from all of us." John felt a wave of relief wash over him, so profound it almost buckled his knees. "Anything, Arthur. Anything you need." Arthur laid out his conditions. First, absolute commitment from John and Sarah. This wasn't something he could do alone, or even mostly alone. They would need to be involved, to understand, to learn. Second, a slow, cautious approach. No rushing, no forcing. Lily's well-being was paramount. If she showed distress or disinterest, they would stop. Third, complete discretion. For now, this was their secret. He didn't want the academy or anyone else to know what they were attempting until he was certain it was right for Lily. John readily agreed to every condition. The very next day, Arthur began transforming a small, unused storage room at the academy into their dedicated sound training space. It was tucked away in a quiet corner, far from the busy classrooms. John, despite his celebrity status and lack of practical skills, insisted on helping. He moved boxes, cleaned shelves, and even helped Arthur set up some of the more basic resonance surfaces. The room slowly took shape, filled with strange instruments. Large, flat wooden panels, metal plates of varying thicknesses, and a collection of custom-built vibrational devices that looked more like abstract art than scientific equipment. Wires snaked across the floor, connecting transducers to a complex console Arthur had built himself. Lily's first sessions were slow and gentle, just as Arthur promised. He started with the absolute basics, introducing distinct vibrational patterns. He would place a small, smooth stone on a resonant plate and tap it with a soft mallet, creating a clear, rhythmic thump that vibrated through the floor and into Lily's small hands. Then he'd switch to a different material, perhaps a piece of glass, and tap it to create a lighter, more delicate ripple. He used simple, everyday analogies. A steady beat for a drum, a fluttering vibration for a bird's wings. Lily, with her natural curiosity and heightened tactile senses, was an ideal candidate. Her eyes, so used to observing the silent world, now focused intently on Arthur's hands. Her own hands pressed firmly against the vibrating surfaces. John and Sarah were present for every single session. They sat quietly, sometimes holding hands, watching their daughter with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They learned alongside Lily, Arthur patiently explaining the nuances of each vibration, the different frequencies, the subtle shifts in intensity. John, who usually relied on brute force and quick decisions, found himself learning a new kind of patience. He watched Lily's face for the slightest change in expression, the smallest flicker of recognition. He started to understand that this wasn't just about feeling a vibration. It was about interpreting it, about making sense of a complex language of touch. There were challenges, of course. Moments of frustration when Lily didn't respond as expected, or when she seemed confused. Arthur would gently remind them that the brain needed time to build these new neural pathways. It's like learning a new language, but for a sense you've never used this way before, he'd explain. It takes repetition, patience, and a lot of trust. He would switch tactics, try a different approach, always adapting to Lily's reactions. Slowly, subtly, Lily began to make connections. Arthur gradually introduced more complex vibrational patterns, He moved from simple beats to rudimentary melodies, playing short, distinct sequences that vibrated through the floor. He even began to translate the distinct feel of different human voices, focusing on their unique vibrational signatures. Lily started to associate specific vibrations with objects she knew, with actions, and even with emotions. A rapid, intense vibration might signify excitement, while a slow, gentle pulse could mean comfort. She began to anticipate patterns, her small fingers twitching in anticipation before Arthur even initiated a vibration. These were early signs of her brain beginning to hear through touch. John, the powerful crusher, underwent a profound transformation during these weeks. The man who once dominated wrestling rings with raw aggression now exhibited an almost meditative patience. He would sit for hours observing Lily, trying to understand what she was feeling. He even started practicing creating vibrational sounds himself, using various objects to tap on the resonant panels, trying to mimic Arthur's precision. His bond with Lily deepened profoundly. He wasn't just her father. He was a fellow student in this strange new world of tactile sound. Then came a significant breakthrough. Arthur introduced a device that allowed Lily to experience the vibration of her parents' spoken words. It wasn't sound, not in the auditory sense, but rather unique, identifiable tactile signatures. When Sarah spoke, Lily would feel a certain pattern. When John spoke, it was a different one. Lily's eyes would widen as she felt the familiar vibrations of her parents' voices, not as noise, but as distinct, personal sensations. It was a glimmer of real connection, a bridge built between their voices and her touch. For the first time, John felt a profound sense of hope, a belief that Lily's world was about to become infinitely richer. The training sessions grew more complex, pushing the boundaries of what John and Sarah thought was possible. Arthur, with his quiet intensity, introduced concepts like pitch and timbre, translating them into variations of vibration frequency and intensity. Lily learned to discern between a low, rumbling vibration and a high, sharp tremor. She could tell the difference between the distinct feel of a piano's resonant thrum and a violin's delicate, sustained hum, all through her fingertips and the soles of her feet. Arthur's ultimate goal was to create a vibrational orchestra. He worked tirelessly, designing a system where Lily could experience an entire piece of music, a symphony through vibrations. Each instrument's part was meticulously translated into a distinct tactile pattern. The booming percussion would send deep pulses through the floor. The soaring strings would create a continuous, flowing ripple, and the crisp brass would register as sharp, clear taps. Lily would sit or stand on a specially designed platform, her entire body absorbing the layers of this tactile symphony. It was a completely new way to experience music, a full-body immersion in rhythm and harmony. Lily began to express her hearing in ways that astonished them all. During these vibrational concerts, she might instinctively tap her foot to a rhythm she felt, her small body swaying with the music. Her eyes would light up, wide with understanding, as a particularly moving melody of vibrations washed over her. She even started to draw abstract patterns, swirling lines and dots and dashes, which she explained through sign language, were her interpretations of the music she was experiencing. These drawings were her way of showing them the unseen world she now perceived. One afternoon, during a particularly moving session, Arthur decided to try something special. He had painstakingly translated a lullaby that Sarah used to sing to Lily when she was a baby, a simple, sweet tune that held so much meaning for their family. As the unique vibrational pattern of the lullaby began to flow through the platform, Lily's expression changed. Her eyes, usually so focused on the vibrations, softened. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. Then, with a clarity and certainty that brought tears to John's eyes, she signed Mama's Song. John felt an overwhelming wave of emotion wash over him. It wasn't just recognition. It was profound understanding, a connection to a memory, a feeling. He saw the pure joy on Lily's face, a joy he had once feared she might never experience. In that moment, he realized the true, incredible power of what Arthur had achieved. This quiet, unassuming janitor had not just given Lily a new sense. He had given her back a piece of her past, a connection to her mother's love that transcended sound. Sarah, who had initially approached Arthur's methods with a healthy dose of skepticism, became a staunch and vocal believer. Witnessing Lily's undeniable progress, seeing her daughter connecting with the world in a way they had never thought possible, shattered any lingering doubts. She saw Lily's confidence bloom, her curiosity ignite, and her expressiveness deepen. Other staff members at the academy couldn't help but notice Lily's unique interactions and her newfound expressiveness. They saw her responding to things that were invisible to them, her body moving in sync with unseen rhythms. Whispers about Arthur's magic started to circulate among the teachers and administrators. He had always been a quiet presence, but now his actions with Lily were undeniable. Arthur, however, remained utterly humble. When anyone praised him, he would simply shake his head. "It's not magic," he'd insist, his voice soft but firm. "It's Lily's incredible capacity to adapt and the brain's amazing plasticity. I just provided the tools. She did the real work." He continued to refine his instruments, always seeking to improve the clarity and depth of the vibrational translations, driven by his lifelong passion. A new form of communication blossomed within the Sterling family. John and Sarah learned to speak to Lily using simple vibrational patterns, creating a new, intimate language unique to their family. They would tap specific rhythms on her hand or use small, resonant objects to convey feelings or simple instructions. This new shared language strengthened their bond beyond anything John had ever imagined. He felt closer to Lily now than he ever had before, truly understanding her world in a way he never thought possible. Lily's world was no longer silent. It was filled with a rich, vibrant tapestry of tactile sensations that she interpreted as sound. Her confidence and happiness soared. She skipped, she hummed, and her movements became more fluid and expressive. The barrier that had once separated her from the hearing world had not been broken down, but rather a new, beautiful bridge had been built, one made of touch, rhythm, and profound understanding. The academy director, a woman named Ms. Albright, had observed Lily's extraordinary progress for weeks. She'd seen the once reserved child blossom into an expressive, engaged student. The whispers about Arthur's methods had reached her office, and she wasn't one to dismiss innovation. One afternoon, she approached Arthur, John, and Sarah after a session, her expression a mix of curiosity and professional interest. "Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Sterling, Arthur," she began, her voice calm and measured. "What you've achieved with Lily is truly remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. The changes in Lily are undeniable." John, ever protective, tensed slightly. He knew where this was likely heading. Ms. Albright continued, "This isn't just about Lily anymore. This is about a breakthrough that could change lives. I believe this method, Arthur's work, needs to be shared. The wider scientific and deaf community should see this." She proposed showcasing Arthur's method and Lily's abilities at a special event, perhaps even a conference hosted at the academy. John's initial reaction was hesitation. He was wary of the publicity, the potential scrutiny, and the risk of turning Lily's private journey into a public spectacle. He feared exploitation, or worse, giving false hope to other families who might not have an Arthur. The world of professional wrestling had taught him enough about the fickle nature of public attention. He had seen too many good things twisted for headlines. "Ms. Albright, with all due respect," John said, his voice low, "Lily's progress is personal. We're not looking for a spotlight." Arthur, usually so quiet, stepped forward. His gaze met John's, calm but firm. "John," he said, "I understand your concern. But this knowledge, it's not meant to be kept in a small room. My life's work, it was always about helping others. If this can give hope, real hope, to even one more child, then it must be shared." He emphasized the potential for a quiet revolution in deaf education and sensory perception, a way to bridge gaps that had seemed unbridgeable. His conviction was clear, unwavering. He spoke of the ethical responsibility they had to share something so profound. Sarah, who had witnessed Lily's transformation firsthand, added her voice. "John, think about all the families out there, feeling just as lost as we were. If Lily can show them another way, a different kind of possibility, shouldn't we let her?" Lily, sensing the conversation's importance, looked from her parents to Arthur. She was now more confident, more expressive. She seemed genuinely excited to share her unique way of hearing. In her own way, she understood the significance of what she did, the joy it brought her, and perhaps the joy it could bring to others. She signed, share, help others, her small hands moving with purpose. Seeing Lily's readiness, and swayed by Arthur's quiet conviction and Sarah's practical wisdom, John finally agreed. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he trusted Arthur, and he trusted Lily. A special event was organized at the academy. It wasn't a grand, flashy affair, but a carefully curated gathering. Invitations went out to leading scientists, audiologists, educators specializing in deaf children, and representatives from foundations dedicated to hearing impairment. John the Crusher. Sterling's involvement, of course, drew significant media attention, a fact Ms. Albright had subtly leveraged to ensure a wide audience. Reporters and camera crews, usually kept at arm's length, were allowed limited access with strict guidelines. The day of the demonstration arrived. The main auditorium was filled to capacity. John sat in the front row with Sarah, a nervous energy thrumming beneath his calm exterior. Arthur, looking a little overwhelmed but determined, stood on a small stage with a table covered in his custom-built devices. Lily, dressed in a bright yellow dress, sat confidently beside him, her hands resting lightly on a large, resonant platform. Arthur began by explaining his lifelong research, his personal motivation, and the science behind translating audible sound into complex, meaningful tactile vibrations. He spoke about the brain's incredible ability to adapt and interpret new sensory information. Then he introduced Lily. The demonstration started simply. Arthur tapped a drum, and the vibration was transmitted to Lily's platform. Lily, with a wide smile, signed drum. He played a few notes on a piano, and Lily correctly identified it, even signing the higher and lower pitches through specific hand movements. The audience watched in rapt silence, a mixture of skepticism and awe on their faces. Then came the more complex part. Arthur played a piece of classical music, a vibrant symphony. Lily closed her eyes, her small body swaying slightly with the intricate patterns of vibration. Her hands moved, interpreting the different instruments, the swelling crescendos, the gentle diminuendos. She signed many sounds like a river, and then, with a flourish, happy. It was evident she wasn't just feeling random vibrations. She was experiencing the emotional landscape of the music. Next, Arthur invited a volunteer from the audience to speak into a microphone. The volunteer, an audiologist, spoke a simple sentence. Lily, feeling the unique tactile signature of the words, paused, then signed. You said, "Hello, Lily. How are you?" A gasp rippled through the audience. The scientific community's initial skepticism began to give way to genuine awe. Scientists leaned forward, taking notes furiously. They recognized the groundbreaking nature of Arthur's work, acknowledging it as a new frontier in sensory perception, a paradigm shift. This wasn't a cure for deafness, but it was a profound way to experience a world previously inaccessible. The media frenzy that followed was immense. Headlines screamed, "WWE Superstar's Daughter Hears Through Touch, Thanks to Janitor." John's personal story, his journey from despair to hope, added an emotional layer to the scientific breakthrough, making it relatable to millions. Interviews, articles, and documentaries followed, spreading Arthur's methods far and wide. Almost immediately, families of deaf children from around the world began to reach out. Emails, letters, and phone calls flooded the academy. They were desperate for similar opportunities, for the same hope that Arthur had brought to Lily. Arthur's method offered a new, profound hope where none existed before, a tangible path forward for those who had felt lost. Arthur, the humble janitor, was finally recognized for his lifelong dedication and brilliant innovation. He received accolades from scientific institutions, honorary degrees, and, crucially, funding to further his research. He was no longer just the Academy's janitor. He was a pioneer, a quiet revolutionary whose work had just opened up a whole new world. The recognition Arthur received wasn't just a fleeting moment of fame. It translated into tangible support that allowed him to realize a lifelong dream. He established a foundation aptly named the Resonant World Foundation, and a state-of-the-art research center dedicated entirely to vibrational sensory translation. This wasn't a small operation. It became a hub for scientists, engineers, and educators from around the globe, all working to refine and expand his methods. His initial, somewhat crude devices evolved into sophisticated, wearable tactile interfaces that could translate a wider range of sounds with even greater fidelity. Arthur, once overlooked, became a revered figure, a quiet revolutionary whose ingenuity had sparked a paradigm shift in how the world understood deafness. Lily, at the center of this revolution, thrived. She grew up not cured of deafness, but empowered with a unique and profound way of experiencing the world. Her tactile hearing wasn't a substitute for traditional hearing. It was an entirely new sensory modality, rich and nuanced. She excelled in her studies, particularly drawn to subjects that allowed her to explore her unique perception. Music, once an abstract concept, became a vibrant, tangible experience for her. She learned to play instruments, not by hearing the notes, but by feeling their precise vibrations, translating them into her internal landscape of tactile sound. She also developed a passion for art, creating pieces that visually represented the music she felt, a unique blend of abstract patterns and vibrant colors. Lily became a powerful advocate for sensory diversity, speaking at conferences and inspiring countless others to embrace their unique ways of perceiving the world. She showed everyone that hearing wasn't limited to the ears, but was a vast, multifaceted experience. John the Crusher Sterling, once defined by his brute strength and wrestling persona, completed his transformation. He shed the rigid image of the intimidating superstar and embraced his new role as a powerful voice for inclusivity and understanding. He used his immense platform, not for self-promotion, but to raise awareness and garner support for Arthur's groundbreaking work. He established scholarships, funded research, and shared his family's story with raw honesty, inspiring millions. His relationship with Lily was the deepest connection he had ever known, built on a foundation of profound mutual understanding and love. They communicated in a rich tapestry of American Sign Language, spoken words, and their own unique language of touch and gesture. The need for conventional sound became irrelevant. Their bond transcended it. The Sterling family's home became a testament to adaptive living and the beauty of alternative sensory experiences. Their living room featured a large, custom-built vibrational floor, allowing them to experience music, movies, and even lively conversations as a full-body tactile experience. Dinner table discussions were a symphony of signs, spoken words, and gentle taps on the table, each conveying a layer of meaning. It was a home filled with laughter, understanding, and a deep appreciation for the diverse ways humans connect with each other in the world. The enduring bond between Lily and Arthur remained special, a thread weaving through their lives. He was more than just her teacher. He became a grandfatherly figure, a mentor who had not only unlocked her world, but had also helped her navigate its complexities. Their shared understanding of vibrational sound created an unbreakable connection, a secret language that only they truly comprehended in its deepest sense. Arthur would often visit Lily, even after she grew up, and they would spend hours discussing new vibrational patterns, the nuances of translating different instruments, or simply enjoying the tactile sound of a gentle rainstorm together. The story of Lily, Arthur, and John transcended their individual lives, becoming a broader message to the world. It spoke volumes about the untapped potential of human senses, urging people to look beyond conventional solutions and embrace innovation. It highlighted the extraordinary impact one unassuming individual, like Arthur, could have when driven by passion and a quiet dedication. It was a powerful testament to the idea that hearing is not just about the ears, but about connection, understanding, and the infinite, beautiful ways the human brain can interpret the richness of the world around it. Years later, Lily, now a vibrant young woman, found herself in a concert hall. Not in an audience seat, but on a specially designed platform at the front, connected to an advanced vibrational system. The orchestra swelled with a grand symphony, and Lily closed her eyes, her entire being vibrating with the music. She felt the deep rumble of the cellos, the shimmering ascent of the violins, the sharp punctuation of the brass, all translated into a complex, exquisite dance across her skin and through her bones. A serene smile spread across her face, her eyes alight with joy. She was experiencing the symphony not through her ears, but through her entire being, a silent testament to the unbelievable gift the janitor, Arthur, had bestowed upon her, opening a world of resonant beauty she never knew existed.